Hey friends, welcome to my channel. I have a fun one for you today. I hope that this will be useful to you. So, I like to do wet media in a lot of these types of books, not just Kirby's books, but Johanna's, all the books that are kind of like this with these types of paper. But the problem is that it's not watercolor paper. And so if you're not careful, you're going to get bleed through. And I'll show you an example. So, as you can see, right here on the witch, and down around here at the bottom on the bird, all this brown is from the lion. Excuse me. So, what you can do though, I did not realize this at the time, but there is a solution, and I'm going to show it to you. Stay to the end, because I'm going to do an example of how it actually works. So you have to watch to the very end. Now, what you're going to need for this, I'm going to set this aside here, is this. It is called clear gesso. Ta-da! It's probably available under different brands, but this is what the brand that Michaels carried. So you can get this at Hobby Lobby, Michaels, Amazon, various other places like that. You're going to need that, and make sure that you don't get regular gesso by mistake, because then you're going to do the exact opposite of what you want to do. You need clear gesso. It's super important. A sponge brush like this. Sizes, vary obviously. You also can get some that are on rollers. That's up to you. And I just have a little plate here to put my gesso on. So I'm going to pour some of this onto this plate. And I clearly need to get some more. Okay, oh, I forgot one other thing that you're going to need too is some fine grit sandpaper. Okay, this is, oh, I got 2 sheets. Excuse me, hold on. It says 80, but what you ultimately want to look for is fine grit, or extra fine even. Okay. I'm not an expert on like grit levels and all that. I just know I need extra fine or fine for this particular project. So I'm going to show you an example of what I did. Here, all this green was colored with the clear gesso on and appropriately taken care of afterwards, and I'll show you in a minute. And as you can see on the other side of this, nothing. Look at that. Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Not a lick of green anywhere. And I'll even show this side. Well, you can't see because it's covered up, but nothing bled through that. I did not realize I could do this until maybe 6 months ago, and that's why this is a thing. And I got tired of this happening over, and it's up here too. You can see where it happened up here. All of this is where the line was. And I thought, well, why not? And I tried it, and it worked. So, I'm going to remove this. And you also need like a little blank sheet of paper, just in case you get some gesso on, you don't want to get gesso on the other pages. So that's why I have that kind of right here. And I'm going to do this whole page. I'm not going to bother with the other side of this because, as you can see, it's a double spreader. I'm just going to focus on this one particular side. So, all you have to do, it's so easy, is just grab your brush, or not your brush, your sponge. Thoroughly coat it. See, this is why I like to take it out of the thing and put it onto a little plate or paper or otherwise. And all you have to do is just make sure, if you don't want any on the other side, obviously you want to be careful. And just carefully, especially if you're not wanting to get any on the other side, and you just, now it is very important when you're doing this to be very thorough. I'm actually going to go down here. And this is why using a sponge is better than a brush, because of what I'm doing right now. I'm getting into that corner. And you just brush it on. But it's so critically important that you cover all of it, because if you don't, where you missed could potentially cause bleed through to the other side. And here's why you want that paper, by the way. And also to protect your desk. It also not only protects the rest of the book, but it protects your desk. Or what, your work surface, I should say, too. It takes maybe 5 or 10 minutes, tops. And it's also a good idea to make sure you coat it thoroughly, too. You want to be generous with this. When you're using it, you want to be generous. Applied very generously. And yes, I'm going back over some of the areas on purpose because it's so easy to miss that it's not going to hurt at all to go back over a particular area, just to make absolutely sure. And I'll show you when I'm done. I'll show you how to check to there's a couple ways you can check to make sure you got the entire area covered. So stay tuned for that. This also squeezes out some of the extra that might still be stuck in it. I'm going to shift my paper down here. And also be careful where you put your finger. In fact, I'm not even going to touch the rest of that. I'm going to just lift up the other side of the book and hold that so that it, because you don't want to, where you put your finger, if it's still wet, you're going to, the oils in your finger are going to pick that up, and you're going to have a what I call a blank spot. And since I'm doing this way, and it also does not hurt to go different directions. In fact, I would probably recommend that, because that way it ensures, it's like cross-hatching when you're coloring. It ensures that a particular area is more thoroughly covered. So, to be honest, I kind of recommend that. And it's already starting to dry. Stuff dries really fast. What you need to do at this point is either let it dry naturally or grab a heat gun. Instead of a heat gun, I would highly suggest something like this. I would highly suggest something like this. Look, see, it folds up, so for easy storage. And just get out your blow dryer and it'll dry it even quicker. Okay, so now one of the ways to check to make sure that you have full coverage is to take your fingers like so and run it carefully, lightly, pretend like you've got a feather, and just see it now, right up here. I feel like I missed a little bit. You should be able to feel a very gritty texture. If you get to a spot that feels smooth instead of gritty, then that means you've got an uncovered spot. And so I'm just gently running my hands over all of it. And sometimes you might still end up missing a spot, but you know, one little spot versus the whole page, you know. And I'm just carefully, and it all feels pretty well covered. Okay, another way you can tell is by, let me take this out, is to kind of, I'm going to bring it close so you guys can see, is to kind of hold it up like this, and if you see a bit of a shine, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but if you see a bit of a shine, that's the clear gesso. So just kind of, you know, move it around under a light and you should be able to see where you've missed and where you haven't. So I recommend doing the hand test, and then also just looking at it through the light. Now, your next step is to take the fine grit sandpaper, and I mean lightly, okay? Again, pretend like you've got a feather in your hands, and you're touching the feather, and you're attempting to not bend the feather more than just a tiny bit. Think about it like that. And what you want to do, let me fold this. Is to lightly just drag it over the surface. Not too much. That's why I say pretend like it's a feather. Because if you push too hard, even though it's a fine or extra fine, you can still sandpaper that gesso off of the paper, and then you're going to have a blank spot, what I call a blank spot, where the paint, the water-soluble crayons, watercolor, whatever. And by the way, just as a side note, there is a thing called watercolor ground, which if you're really wanting to put watercolor on a surface that is not meant for watercolor, I can also do a video on that if you want. I have some, and it's fantastic for you could take, with watercolor ground, you could take this plate, put some watercolor ground on it, and watercolor on it. Seriously. So if you want a video on that, please let me know. But all you do is just take your sandpaper and gently just drag it across. And again, very gently. This will reduce some of the grittiness and the abrasiveness that you feel, so that if you choose to use water-soluble crayons or watercolor pencils, it won't chew them up quite so badly. It will still chew them up. As a matter of fact, I used Supra watercolor to do pencils to do this entire green area, and it went through probably about that much of it. But if I had not sanded this down very lightly, it would have been like this much instead of this much. So it does work. You just, again, have to be really careful not to do it to sand to the point where you sand the clear gesso right off of it. Then you're kind of defeating the purpose of putting it on. So what I thought I would do, oh, and also one thing you want to do is get a brush. After you've sanded it, get like a little brush or something like that, and just kind of do this to get some of the grit and stuff like that off of it. You could also use a cheesecloth. I believe that's what they call those things. And that should also take care of it, but I don't have any of that, so a brush it is. And I'm being thorough because I want to make sure I get it all. All right, put that aside. Now, I'm going to do the hand test again, to make sure that I wasn't too aggressive with the sandpaper, because if you feel that smooth spot, then you're going to have to go back over it, and that's not a big deal. I've had that happen where I got a little too aggressive with the sandpaper, and I had to sort of reapply it in a small area. It's not a big deal. See, and you'll feel a difference. You will absolutely feel a difference. So what I'm going to do is take my crayons here. Let's zoom. These are my Caran d'Ache Neo 2s. Highly recommend. There is a review of these on my channel. You might have to go back quite a ways, but it is there. All right, I've grabbed a few of my Neo 2s here, and I'm going to do just a little bit of this to show you guys how it actually does work. I'm going to start with my lightest area first. Do some highlights. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it would just be too time consuming, but I'm going to do a little bit so that you guys can see how well this actually works. Now, one thing you're going to need to know is that when you do use this method, it will eat away at your crayons or your pencils a little bit more, even sanded down. It will eat at them a little bit more if you apply it directly like I'm doing. So what you can do if you don't want that is to grab a palette. It can be any palette. I prefer the Crayon Dash palettes, because they have the smooth side, and then they have this textured side, which grabs the crayon really well. So these run, I think, if I remember correctly, about 15 bucks. So you can do that and pick it up from the palette if you want. The nice thing about this particular method is that once you lay down something like this, you can always go over it with like regular colored pencils if you want to, because the water-soluble crayons or the watercolor pencils will have filled in some of this extra tooth that we just laid down. I think that's about enough. I'm going to do one more spot here. That should be enough. All right, so what I have here is my watercolor brush. Test this out. Always test it out. Make sure it's going to come out right. And the other thing you want to have handy is either a paper towel or a hand towel. I highly recommend hand towels, by the way, over paper towels. They are way more absorbent and way more durable than any paper towel you will ever find. They're called hand towels. They're like paper towels on steroids. Fantastic. So they're also good for when you're doing this sort of thing and you need to wipe your brush like this. You will want to wipe this, especially when you're going from such a dark area like right here to a different area. You really do want to just kind of go like this and clean your brush off. I highly, highly recommend it. I'm changing it in colors, so I'm going to clean it up. Now you can also use watercolor on this, although the watercolor ground works a little better, but this will work with watercolor also. Clean my brush. I'm blending some of this lighter into the darker. Now when I go back into the light, I'm going to wipe my brush off first to keep the highlight area pure. Sometimes you can't always do. If that, like what just happened there, take your brush and just directly go to the crayon. There, and problem solved. Also, one other pro tip, be aware that your brush is going to get clogged up. Water-soluble crayons tend to clog these types of brushes up, so you'll want to rinse your brush off after a bit. Just about like that. And that will sort of kind of help with that. Ooh, a little too much there. But we're going to find out. That's really going to put this clear gesso to the test, because I ended up squirting out a little too much water. So we're gonna really be putting it to the test. Put this down. Clean my brush once again. Let's see, that did not go as planned. Okay, so that happens. Side note, just grab your crayon. And do that. And I want this a little stronger, so once again I'm going to go back into that, and I'm going to really put this to the test by adding a lot more pigment and water. I think I have got all the areas that I colored, except for one spot. There. We are done. Now, I'm going to dry this, and I will be right back. Okay, so I thought what I would do as a bonus is to show you how truly remarkable using clear gesso can be for saving your books. Is I'm going to take a watercolor, this one, and I'm going to put it on the bricks here. And this, by the way, is a palette that I made myself. I mean, I'm sure it probably looks it. But that's another video, by the way, that I have somewhere in my catalog. I believe it's under the tutorials, demos, and reviews, where I made a palette like this. And I showed you all how I do it. It's not that hard, it's just time consuming. So anyway, let's take this. I don't remember what color that is, to be honest. I think it's terracotta, but please don't quote me. Let's take a little bit of that and let's really put this to the test. So I'm going to let that activate. All right, now what I'm going to do is use my palette to pick up some of this first. And I can tell the paints that have the better higher end brands and the ones that don't, because the ones that are lower end are cracked. Like you can kind of tell, like how the ones like these ones are cracked. It's a lower grade of paint versus like that one that just is still nice and smooth and uncracked and it activates like that. That's one of my higher end paints. Just food for thought. Quality does make a difference. All right, let's really put this to the test. Make sure this is dry. I think this makes a really great brick color. But I'm just doing straight watercolor onto it. It's a little too much paint there. And if you get a little too much in one area, just scrape it off, just like I did. Easy peasy. Now the one thing to note when you're using this particular method for keeping your other side of your page clean, you can rub enough and manipulate the surface enough that you lift the gesso. That has happened to me. So just be careful how much you mess with the surface or that gesso will come up. Alright, that seems like that's enough for us to test it out. Let me rinse off my brush. If you would like a fresh tutorial on how to make one of these, please let me know in the comments. I would be glad to redo that tutorial. So let's give this a quick dry. Okay, so now our paint is dry. You ready for the reveal? Ta-da! Look at that, guys. Absolutely nothing. I used water-soluble crayons and straight up watercolor. As you can tell, there is not a hint of bleed through anywhere. Not a bit. It works. It really does, even in straight watercolor. So, I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I hope you find it useful. If you have any questions, please, pop it in the comments and I will answer them if I can. I hope that you all have a blessed and safe day and take care of your mental health, okay? Because I care about you guys, all right? So just take care of yourselves. Bye.